The storm had no mercy. Winds screamed through the frozen forest. Snow swallowed everything in sight, and temperatures dropped so low, even survival itself felt impossible. Out here, in the heart of Siberia, no one comes, no one visits. But on this night, something did. And when an 80-year-old woman opened her door, what she saw would change everything. Far away from cities, far away from noise, lived a woman named Anya. She was 80 years old. Her hands were worn from years of work, her back slightly bent, but her spirit still strong. Every day followed the same rhythm. Wake before sunrise, light the fire, boil water for tea. Outside her small wooden cabin, the world stretched endlessly into white. No neighbors, no roads, just forest and silence. Some would call it lonely, but to Anya, it was peace. She had lived here for decades, through storms, through loss, through time itself. And she had learned one thing: nature doesn't forgive mistakes. That evening, something felt wrong. The wind arrived first, low, distant, like a warning. Then stronger. Trees began to sway. Snow lifted from the ground in swirling waves, and the temperature dropped, fast. -20, -30, then lower. Anya stepped outside briefly and immediately felt it. This wasn't a normal storm. This was the kind that kills. She shut the door tightly, added more wood to the fire, and waited. Hours passed. The storm grew louder. The cabin creaked under the pressure of the wind. Then, a sound. A heavy, dull thud. Anya froze. Her eyes slowly turned toward the door. Silence. Then again. Thud. Not the wind, not falling wood. Something was out there. Her heart began to beat faster. Nothing should be outside in this storm. Nothing alive. She grabbed her lantern. Step by step, slowly, she walked toward the door. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for the handle. For a moment, she hesitated. Then, she opened it. The wind burst inside. Snow whipped across her face. And then, she saw them. A massive moose collapsed in the snow, its body barely moving, its fur covered in ice. And beside it, a tiny calf, curled into itself, shivering, weak, dying. They hadn't just wandered here. They had come to her door. Anya knew what this meant. Moose are not harmless. Even healthy, they are powerful, dangerous. One kick, one sudden movement, and it would be over. She should close the door, stay inside, stay safe. But she didn't, because she saw something in their eyes. Not aggression, not fear, desperation. They weren't a threat. They were asking for help. And in that moment, Anya made her choice. "No," she whispered softly, "not tonight." The cold hit her instantly as she stepped outside. Her boots sank into deep snow. The wind pushed against her frail body, but she kept moving, back and forth, from the shed to the animals. She dragged hay, blankets, anything she could find. First, the calf. She gently covered it, shielding it from the wind. It barely moved. Then the mother, larger, heavier, harder to reach. She worked slowly, carefully. Every second mattered. Her hands grew numb. Her breath turned shallow, but she didn't stop. Anya did something she had never done before. She lit fires, outside, small ones, shielded from the wind as best she could. The flames flickered wildly, but they gave heat, just enough. Minutes passed. Then, something changed. The calf twitched. A small movement, but real, alive. Anya leaned closer. "Stay with me," she whispered. Time lost meaning. The storm continued, but Anya stayed there, beside them, talking softly, watching, waiting. Her body was exhausted, her eyes heavy, but she refused to leave. At some point, the wind began to weaken, the snowfall slowed, and in the quiet, she noticed something. The calf was breathing stronger, the mother slightly moving. They were fighting, just like her. Then finally, morning came. The storm was gone. The sky cleared, revealing pale sunlight over the frozen land. Anya blinked slowly, almost unable to believe they had made it through the night. And then, the calf moved. It pushed itself up, struggling, shaking, but standing, alive. Tears filled Anya's eyes. Moments later, the mother moose began to rise. Slowly, powerfully, she stood tall, then turned her head and looked directly at Anya. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. No fear, no aggression, only something deeper, something unspoken. Without a sound, the moose turned. The calf followed. Step by step, they walked toward the forest. Anya stood in the doorway, watching, until they disappeared into the trees. Days later, they came back. Not weak, not dying, but strong, standing quietly outside her cabin. For a moment, they looked at her again, and then they left. This time, not in desperation, but in peace. In the coldest place on earth, a simple act of kindness was never forgotten. That night, before the storm fully arrived, Anya sat quietly by the fire, staring into the flames, because this wasn't the first time something had come to her door. Years ago, during another winter, a starving wolf had appeared, weak, injured, dangerous. Everyone had warned her, never help a wild predator, but she did. And instead of attacking, the wolf simply rested, then disappeared by morning. She never saw it again. But from that day, she believed something most people didn't. Even the wild remembers kindness. Back in the present, the storm didn't just grow stronger, it became violent. The kind of storm that erases tracks, freezes breath in seconds, and buries anything that cannot move. Outside, branches snapped, ice cracked, and somewhere in the darkness, something was struggling to survive. Miles away, before they reached her cabin, the moose had already been fighting. The mother, weak from hunger, her body drained by the cold, and the calf, too young to survive a storm like this. They wandered blindly, step after step, through deep snow, until the mother collapsed once, then again. But she kept going, because she wasn't just surviving, she was trying to save her baby, and somehow, through instinct, or something deeper, they found the only light for miles, Anya's cabin. As Anya worked, something dangerous crossed her mind. If the mother suddenly panicked, if fear took over, even in her weak state, she could kill her. Instantly. Anya paused, her breath visible in the cold air. But instead of stepping back, she did something unexpected. She lowered herself, slowly, making herself smaller, non-threatening, and spoke softly, "I won't hurt you." Hours passed. Her body began to fail her, her hands numb, her legs shaking. The wind cut through her clothes. For a moment, she stepped back toward the door. Just for a second, she thought about going inside, resting, surviving. But then, she heard it, a weak, soft sound. The calf, still alive, still fighting. Anya closed her eyes and turned back. "No," she whispered, "I'm not leaving you." She wasn't alone. Beyond the edge of the trees, eyes watched, hungry, wolves, drawn by weakness, by the scent of survival, slipping away. Anya saw them, faint shapes in the distance, moving slowly, waiting. This wasn't just a rescue anymore, it was a race. Anya grabbed burning wood from the fire. Her hands shook, but she held it out. The flame flickered wildly in the wind. She stepped forward, toward the darkness. The wolves didn't attack, but they didn't leave either. So she stayed there, between them, and the helpless animals behind her. Slowly, the storm weakened, the wind softened, and for the first time, there was silence. Anya looked down. The calf was moving more now, stronger, and the mother was breathing deeper. They were going to make it. Before leaving, the mother stepped closer than before, closer than any wild animal ever had. So close, Anya could feel her breath. For a moment, time stopped. And in that silence, there was understanding. Not fear, not instinct, something deeper. Then, they turned and walked away. In a world ruled by survival, one act of kindness changed everything. And sometimes, even the wild remembers who saved them.